Welcome back to Fun Facts Online. Today we are stripping away the modern world, peeling back 45,000 years of history, and stepping onto the wind-swept steppe of the last ice age. I want you to visualize a specific moment. The wind is howling outside a skin tent, carrying the biting chill of a frozen world. Inside, illuminated by the flickering orange glow of a hearth, a figure lies curled under heavy furs. He is an old man by the standards of his time, perhaps 40 or 50 years old. If you looked closely at him, you would see a catalog of trauma. His right arm is withered, a useless limb resulting from an injury sustained decades ago. He is deaf in one ear. He walks with a severe, painful limp. He is partially blind, likely from a blow to the face. By the brutal, unyielding logic of survival of the fittest, this man should have died years ago. He cannot hunt the mammoth that roam the tundra. He cannot defend his group from prowling cave lions. He is, in a purely economic sense, a burden. And yet he is here. He is fed. He is warm. He is safe. Someone has chewed his food for him because his teeth are worn down to nubs. Someone has guided him over the treacherous terrain of what is now Iraqi Kurdistan. This man is known to modern science as Shanidar I, or affectionately by anthropologists as Nandy. His skeleton is not just a collection of bones. It is a testament to a profound and often overlooked truth about our prehistoric ancestors. It completely dismantles the popular image of the Stone Age human as a brutish individualist. Today, we are exploring the fascinating, complex, and deeply moving history of disability in prehistory. We are going to look at the bioarchaeology of care, a field that reconstructs the lives of those who survived against the odds, and we are going to ask what their survival tells us about the very nature of humanity. For centuries, the narrative was Hobbesian. Life was nasty, brutish, and short. The weak were left behind to freeze or starve. This fit neatly with early Darwinian interpretations of evolution as a relentless competition where only the physically strongest survived. But as the spade of the archaeologist has dug deeper, and as the eye of the pathologist has looked closer, a different story has emerged. It is a story of cripples who became shamans, of paralyzed teenagers carried for miles through swamps, and of the elderly cared for with a tenderness that defies the savage stereotype. To understand this, we need to look through a new lens. For a long time, archaeologists just noted pathologies as medical curiosities. A healed fracture here, a fused spine there. They were footnotes. It was not until researchers like Lorna Tilley developed the Bioarchaeology of Care framework that these bones began to speak as biographies. This framework asks 4 revolutionary questions when we find a disabled skeleton. First, what was the biological impact of the disability? Could they walk? Could they chew? Second, what were the functional implications? If they could not walk, they could not hunt or gather. Third, what care was required? Did they need to be carried, fed, or nursed? And finally, what does this care say about the society? Did they value this person, despite their lack of economic output? This shift forces us to confront the logistical reality of the Stone Age. In a nomadic hunter-gatherer society, everything must be carried. Food is scarce, mobility is life. To keep a non-ambulatory person alive is not a passive act of tolerance. It is an active, costly investment. It requires a surplus of food, a division of labor, and, crucially, the will to do so. Let us return to Shanidar I, our Neanderthal survivor. His injuries were catastrophic. A massive injury to his right arm resulted in amputation, or at least withering so severe the arm was useless. He had a broken foot that healed, but left him limping. He suffered from a degenerative condition called dish. Yet his injuries showed signs of healing, meaning he survived the initial trauma by years, perhaps decades. In a world of ambush hunting, where 2 hands and speed were essential, Shanidar I was economically useless in the traditional sense. Yet his group not only protected him, but likely processed his food for him. His survival suggests that Neanderthal society was not based solely on physical utility. He may have been a repository of knowledge, a storyteller, or simply a loved father or brother. He is not the only one. Consider the Old Man of La Chapelle-aux-Saints, found in France. Early 20th century scientists described him as a stooped beast-like creature, fueling the primitive stereotype. Modern analysis revealed he was simply an old man, suffering from severe arthritis. Crucially, he had lost most of his teeth long before he died. In a time before blenders or soup, surviving without teeth meant someone else, another adult, was chewing his food for him or mashing it into a soft pulp. This pre-mastication is an intimate act of care, echoing the bond between a mother and infant, but here it was extended to an unproductive elder. As we move from Neanderthals to anatomically modern humans and the Mesolithic era, the evidence becomes even more detailed. Let us travel to the swamps of Florida about 7,500 years ago. In a peat bog known as the Windover Cemetery, archaeologists found a boy, roughly 15 years old, who suffered from spina bifida. This is a congenital defect where the spine does not fuse properly. This boy had a severe case that likely left him paralyzed from the waist down. He also had a severe infection in his legs that caused bone deformation. Now think about the logistics. This was a semi-nomadic wetland society. A paralyzed teenager is a massive challenge. He would have needed to be carried, cleaned, and bathed to prevent bed sores and sepsis. He could not have contributed to hunting or gathering in the swamps. Yet, he survived to adolescence. The community did not just tolerate him, they integrated him. The care he received was consistent and long-term, implying he was a valued member of the social fabric. Jump forward to the Neolithic period in Vietnam, about 4,000 years ago, at a site called Man Bac. Archaeologists found a young man, known as Burial 9, curled in a fetal position. He suffered from Klippel-Feil syndrome, a rare genetic condition that fused his cervical vertebrae. He was essentially paralyzed from the neck down, with very limited mobility in his upper body. He lived into his early 20s. His condition meant he could not feed himself or even perform basic self-care. For over a decade, someone brought him water, fed him, and likely helped him with bodily functions. The positioning of his burial, carefully arranged and not discarded, suggests he was mourned. This case is pivotal because it shows that even in the transition to agriculture, where labor was a premium resource, the non-productive were not discarded. This brings us to a fascinating theory, the shaman hypothesis. In many ethnographic records, individuals with physical or mental differences are often seen as liminal beings, people who exist between the worlds of the living, the dead, and the spirits. Their physical difference is not a defect, but a mark of the divine. Consider the double burial of Sungir in Russia, dating back 34,000 years. Two boys were buried head-to-head in a long, narrow grave. They were covered in thousands of ivory beads, each of which took hours to carve. They wore ivory bracelets and had spears made of straightened mammoth tusk. The sheer wealth of their grave goods dwarfs that of the healthy adults found nearby. But both boys were physically disabled. One had distinct bowing of the legs, and the other had a severe facial deformity. Why would two disabled children be buried with the wealth of kings? The theory is that their disabilities marked them as special, potentially as spiritual anchors of their community. Similarly, at Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, archaeologists found a woman with a severe facial asymmetry, likely caused by a stroke or tumor. Buried near her was a small ivory head, carved with the exact same facial asymmetry. Her face was not just tolerated, it was immortalized in art. She may have been a shaman or healer, her physical pain giving her the authority to mediate with the spirit world. Then there is Romito II, a young man found in a cave in Italy dating to the late Upper Paleolithic. He had a chromosomal dysplasia, a form of dwarfism. He was very short, with bowed limbs. He lived to be about 17, and was buried in the arms of an older woman, possibly his mother. The cave contains stunning rock art. The fact that he was buried in such a significant, ritualized space suggests his status was not diminished by his stature. He was literally held in death by those who held him in life. But care in the Stone Age was not just about spirituality or emotion. It was also technical. The Stone Age pharmacopoeia and surgical kit were surprisingly advanced. One of the most impressive feats is trepanation, the drilling or scraping of a hole into the skull. Evidence for this dates back to the Neolithic. Skulls found in France, Ukraine, and Peru show clear holes that have healed. The bone regrowth proves the patient survived the surgery, sometimes for years. Why do it? It may have been to treat headaches, epilepsy, or mental illness, or to treat cranial trauma. The survival rate was shockingly high, in some samples over 70%. This implies a knowledge of infection control and post-operative care. We also know they used herbal medicine. Dental calculus from Neanderthals in Spain revealed traces of yarrow and chamomile, bitter plants with no nutritional value but known anti-inflammatory properties. Another individual had traces of poplar, which contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin, and penicillium mold, the source of penicillin, suggesting he was self-medicating for a dental abscess. There is even evidence of amputation. At a Neolithic site in France, an elderly man was found with a healed amputation of his left forearm. The cut was clean, and the bone had healed well. This was surgery. Someone cut through the flesh, sawed the bone, cauterized or stitched the wound, and nursed the man through the dangerous period of blood loss and infection. Now, we arrive at the debate, why did they do this? Some scholars argue for the survival necessity argument. They suggest that keeping a disabled person alive was a pragmatic decision. In a group of 30 people, every pair of eyes counts. A man who cannot run can still spot predators. A woman who cannot walk can still scrape hides or teach children. The grandmother hypothesis suggests that older, post-reproductive women were vital for the survival of grandchildren. Keeping an elderly, arthritic woman alive was an investment in the next generation. Others argue for the moral obligation argument. Researchers like Penny Spikins argue that compassion is a fundamental human trait, evolved to bind groups together. The burial of the Romito dwarf in the arms of a woman speaks to an emotional connection that transcends utility. The truth is likely a synthesis. Humans are obligate cooperators. We cannot survive alone. Our ability to feel empathy drives us to care, and that care allows the group to retain valuable knowledge and social cohesion. A group that abandons its weak might survive the winter, but a group that cares for them builds a loyalty and depth of experience that helps them survive the millennium. To conclude, let us look even further back, at the skull of Benjamina, a Homo heidelbergensis child, from 530,000 years ago found in Spain. She suffered from craniosynostosis, a premature fusion of the skull plates that would have caused cognitive delays and a deformed appearance. Yet, she lived to be 10 or 12 years old. 500,000 years ago, long before Homo sapiens walked the earth, our ancestors looked at a different child and decided she was one of them. The evidence from the Stone Age shatters the myth of the ruthless savage. It reveals a humanity recognizable to us, fraught with danger but buffered by deep networks of care. Disability was not a death sentence. It was a facet of life, managed with ingenuity, patience, and love. The survival of Shanidar I, the Windover Boy, and Rumito II tells us that the fittest were not just the strongest or the fastest. The fittest were those who were loved the most. Our ancestors survived the Ice Ages not just because they could make fire, but because they could make room for each other. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.